At some point, you've probably left a movie thinking that blew my mind, or that was powerful, or if it was 2007, you might have said that was epic. But have you ever left a movie feeling like it just missed blowing your mind? Like it was so close to being a top tier movie, but something just didn't fully connect with you? Well, that's how I felt about Free Guy, and apparently I wasn't the only one. Here's the consensus review from Rotten Tomatoes. Combining a clever concept, sweet, self-aware humor, and a charming cast, Free Guy is frivolous fun. And the reason this review is so frustrating is because the film was so close to being much more than just frivolous fun. As many critics pointed out, Free Guy shares aspects of The Truman Show, Groundhog Day, and The Matrix. But it's clear to me that it won't be remembered in the same culturally significant light as those movies, and I believe that's for two main reasons. Number one, it bulldozed through the most interesting spiritual question that it was set up to explore, and two, it violated one of the 7 spiritual laws. Welcome to Movie Meditations. Let's dive into Free City to see how this 2021 movie missed an opportunity to be a timeless classic. If you did watch the ridiculously long 3-minute trailer, you were primed for an action comedy with Ryan Reynolds just doing his thing. You'll get some laughs, you'll get to watch some things blow up, and hey, maybe 2 attractive people will kiss on screen. But I want you to imagine for just a moment that you sat down to watch this movie on Disney Plus and you're halfway through not having seen the trailer that reveals way too much about this movie, and with no preconceived notions about what the genre of this movie is. Yes, there's been some comedy and some action in the first half of the movie, but now you're starting to realize that at some point Guy is going to have to grapple with a big question about his reality. So to catch you up to speed in case you haven't seen this movie in a hot second, spoilers ahead, the movie is set in a video game called Free City, where there are people who are non-playable characters, aka NPCs, controlled by the game's programming, as well as the players controlled by the humans in the physical world. The story centers around an NPC named Guy, who starts to deviate from his programming after Millie, a programmer in the real world, her avatar, Molotov Girl, catches his attention and becomes his love interest. This pushes him to level up so that Molotov Girl will allow him to go on a mission with her and subsequently spend more time around her. In the process of leveling up, he begins to attract the attention of the game's players and the media.
He looks like an NPC, but he's running around leveling up crazy fast by being a freaking good guy.
When Millie and Keys learn that Free City 2 is due to release in 48 hours and will completely replace Free City, effectively terminating all of the game's NPCs, they decide to tell Guy the truth about his existence as a video game NPC so that he can help prevent this from happening. And this is when the first major missed opportunity of the film comes into play. By far the most interesting question that the premise sets up is for Guy to ask himself, what is real? This question is one that people have been thinking about recently in relation to simulation theory and emerging tech in VR and artificial intelligence spaces, but it's a question which has been in the collective consciousness and at the forefront of spirituality for millennia. Ancient books like the Yoga Vashista and the Ashtavakra Gita have delved into this question at length, and it's one of those questions where simply the contemplation of it brings you to new levels of understanding more than any immediate answer that you may come across. It's such a beautiful question for humans to chew on, and in the first half of this movie, it sets up a great premise from which to explore this question. But unfortunately in this movie, this question gets posed to Guy and then is answered within literally 5 minutes. And it's not that the conversation he has with Buddy is necessarily wrong or misplaced, it's just that the movie never lets the weight of this question sit with the protagonist nor the audience. It's the sitting in that discomfort of not knowing when the character development happens, where the stakes of the internal conflicts get raised, and where the audience gets the opportunity to taste the spiritual implications of reflecting on this question. Contrast this with The Matrix, where the film really allows you to sit with that question and reflect on how you know what you know. The fact of the matter is that as individuals and as a species, we don't really remember how we got here or where we're going after, and so it's such a juicy topic to explore, and there's so many different angles to elicit the wonder from this question, and it was just such a missed opportunity for this film to do just that. Instead, because the most interesting problem of the movie gets solved within a few minutes, that turns the final 40 minutes of the movie into a normal action film with virtually the same goals and the same stakes as any other action movie. Okay, so this was the first missed opportunity, but I think the more fascinating reason why this film just doesn't hit a stronger emotional chord with us, and why Free Guy will sadly only be remembered as frivolous fun, is because of this. It violates a spiritual law. Okay, so you might be thinking, what does this even mean? Are we talking about some Moses and 10 Commandments stuff or what? Not exactly. But let's reflect on something for a minute. Have you ever noticed for a movie when it hits different, when it hits hard, that main character's internal growth happens in a particular direction? Okay, what do I mean by that? Think about if the main character of a movie goes from being driven by love to being driven by chasing pleasure. To take an example of an extraordinarily popular figure in modern mythology, think about Iron Man's internal story arc, and imagine a scenario where it moves in the opposite direction. What if he went from a self-sacrificing protector of Earth to a self-interested, pleasure-seeking playboy? There's something inside us that's saying it's not moving in the right direction, or at least not moving in the right direction for a protagonist or a hero, and we wouldn't really connect or be moved by him as a character. This is something that we feel internally, even if we haven't put it into those exact words. And after watching Free Guy, I couldn't figure out at first why the movie felt so close to hitting a powerful emotional arc, but just seemed to miss it. And then I remembered a quote from a booklet by global humanitarian and spiritual leader Gurudev on the 7 spiritual laws. And it reads, "When you don't care for pleasure, you gain freedom. When you don't care for freedom, you gain love. This is the natural evolution of life." So then, when I went back and rewatched this movie, it hit me that Guy's arc doesn't hit as hard because it seems the progression actually goes in the opposite direction of that evolution. Okay, so hear me out. At the beginning of the movie, Guy first encounters this pleasure-pain barrier. Something calls him to seek out more, but his surroundings tell him, no, you're comfortable. You're going to lose the pleasure of familiarity and experience the pain of the unknown if you go after it.
God, this isn't you. You don't do this, man.
But he hits a tipping point and eventually just says, okay, forget it. I'm done living within my barrier of comfort, and puts his life on the line and is rewarded by becoming free of his NPC programming. A new dimension is opened up to him when he crosses this threshold of being controlled by pain and pleasure, which is in alignment with the spiritual law, and why I believe this part resonates with us. We understand the freedom that comes from being able to move through our fear of losing pleasure and enduring pain to achieve a higher goal. Okay, so he has freedom. He's got the sneakers, he has the money in his account, he could run around and just rob banks and cause chaos like everyone else in Free City. He's free to do whatever he wants. But instead, he narrows that freedom to pursue a higher goal, to pursue love in the romantic form of love toward Molotov Girl. This is another evolution that inherently resonates with us. You've probably experienced some point in your life when you had your freedom limited in one way or another to pursue love or to pursue some higher goal. Whether it was getting into a romantic relationship and therefore restricting the freedom to see other people, maybe it was having kids, therefore restricting the freedom of your time and resources, or even just committing to a project or a cause that you love and therefore having to say no to many other interesting projects. So in that way, Guy moving from just having freedom to do whatever he wants to then giving up some of that freedom to pursue this higher value of love, represented here in the romantic form, really connects with us. But at the end of the movie, we see a shift from this emphasis on love back to an emphasis on freedom.
So what are you gonna do?
Anything I want.
So what do we do? Whatever we want.
And it just doesn't hit as hard as when it happens in the reverse order. I believe this movie would have connected much more with us on a spiritual level if, at the end, instead of the emphasis on Guy being free to do what he wants, if the emphasis was on the expanded form of love that he has for the NPCs in that world. This theme is already kind of there in the movie, displayed through all of the trials he's forced to endure to save the NPCs, but the film steers away from this focus and instead brings Guy and Buddy's newfound freedom to the front and center. And for this reason, I think many of us left the movie feeling entertained, but not as spiritually moved as we could have been. Freedom to do what you want when you want has some value, but limiting your freedom by committing to something higher, some form of love, is where you find the juice, the meaning, and the electricity of life. I hope this video provided enough value for you to meditate on until next time.